Hello and welcome to Telegraph Studios. My name is Tim Adler and today we're going to be talking about mergers and acquisitions. I'm talking to Andrew Scola, who's the UK partner of Global PMI Partners. Andrew, before we start, you better explain to me, what does PMI actually stand for?
So PMI stands for Post-Merger Integration, which is a common acronym used for mergers and acquisitions programs.
Okay. So what are the main challenges facing cross-border mergers and acquisitions?
Well, all M&A activity is difficult because the specific contextual factors make any deal unique. But when we're talking about cross-border M&A, we've got three really complex areas to deal with. The first is really around people issues, hard and soft people issues in another country. Secondly, it's around the tax and legal structure, the legal entities and the tax structures that we might encounter. And thirdly, I'd say it's around just governing or managing such a complex program, which is necessarily complicated across borders.
Okay, I just want to drill down a bit further. What exactly do you mean by people process?
So when I talk about people process, I mean all those HR activities that need to be done. Firstly, there's the hard things, we'd call them localization, knowing what you don't know about doing business in other countries. So these could be things like understanding foreign employment law, consultative regulations, trade unions, strike action, and the legality of these things, which you may encompass or you may encounter. Secondly, there's some of the softer things. Culture. There's always going to be differences between sites and between different businesses when it comes to culture. But when we're talking about doing business in different countries and acquiring across borders, there's the opportunity for national differences, for linguistic differences, and for local HR policies and norms that affect the local talent market, for example, to become a factor.
So can you give me, have there ever been a situation where the differences have been too great to navigate? The differences between countries have been too broad?
Well, we don't typically see companies backing out of mergers because of HR issues. But typically what we might see is that programs that were intended to run quite quickly and integrations that were intended to run very quickly and deliver the deal synergies quickly have been delayed or postponed because of HR issues. And certainly certain countries, again, often in France or in Italy, end up running more slowly than in the UK or certainly than in places like the US.
Okay, now from an employee's point of view, these kind of mergers and acquisitions can be very scary. What do you do about getting employees on board about where you're going to go?
Well, it's very important, and the secret here is to communicate early, openly, and as transparently and often as you can. And that means not just to the integration team that obviously need to understand, but to all employees across both businesses to be as transparent as you possibly can. Employees tell us again and again and again that they didn't know enough information, they didn't know what was going on. There are legal restrictions to communicating with employees often, but where you can, it's a very good idea to communicate often and early.
Yeah, but you say that, but the truth is that 70% of mergers and acquisitions fail even after the heads of terms have been agreed.
That's right. That's a very commonly quoted metric. I'd say that there's another one, which is that less than 1% of the price of the deal is typically spent on supporting the integration itself. I think that this is a mistake, and that companies that aren't investing enough in the integration, maybe they're making assumptions that it's easy, it'll be okay, are missing a trick. And our company is one of many that provide services to integrating companies, to work with them, to become part of the team and to bring our expertise, local expertise, wherever they are and wherever the deal is, to help mitigate the risks and overcome some of those pitfalls which we've seen before.
Okay, so I'm committed to bringing in an external consultant to help me manage the change. What should I be looking for?
Well, I think more and more our clients are looking for a consultancy that will work with them, that will partner with them. So instead of coming in with a methodology and a tool set and asking them to step back, we're the experts, we know what we're doing, actually to build a relationship where the consultancy partners with, fills the expertise, knowledge and geographical gaps that the company has itself, retains ownership of the integration activities within the company, but supports them through that journey.
So basically you're talking about sort of being pretty embedded in a company.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, all of which sounds good, but surely this is a very disruptive process.
Well, the integration process can be extremely disruptive to a business. The number one principle is to think about business continuity throughout the acquisition. The first thing we do is we put some guiding principles up when we get into the workshops with our clients that say that as well as thinking about adding value during the integration, we need to be protective of the value, not destroying any value. And that means making sure that the leadership, make sure the sales teams are really focused on running the business whilst we're changing and integrating those businesses. And again, our company have got a very rigorous mechanisms for monitoring synergies whilst also helping businesses and allowing business as usual teams to continue focusing on running the business well.
Yeah, you make it sound very easy, but I mean the nitty gritty is that you're going to have to try and slot together two companies and with equivalent jobs. I think you call this levelling.
That's right. It's not an easy process. It is a disruptive process in terms of internally, but what we want to make sure is that those internal changes, the disruption to the business and sometimes the loss of jobs doesn't impact the business performance, doesn't impact our customers, doesn't affect our service levels.
So, can you give me an example of what you think would be a very successful acquisition? Yeah,
there's a client we've been working with, a US parent company called Jack Link's, a food company, that wanted a foothold in Europe, and so they acquired a couple of brands that were carved out of Unilever. And not only have they bought some valuable brands which will add value to the overall business, but they've also given themselves a sales and distribution model in Europe in the process of doing that to sell and to cross-sell some of their North American brands.
Well, you talk about business performance. How do you measure success?
Well, success is commonly measured by the financial performance against the deal rationale as communicated to the markets at the time of the acquisition. I'd like to propose that's actually a very narrow metric for ascertaining the success of an integration program. There are lots of more difficult to measure KPIs around cultural integration, around attrition levels, staff morale and so on. So we do see some of our clients doing staff surveys and taking a broader portfolio of KPIs into account when looking at success.
Okay. Well, listen, Andrew, you've given me plenty of food for thought. Thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you, Tim.
Joining us now, live on the line from Copenhagen, is the chairman of Danisco, Tandrup. Thank you so much for joining us on the phone. Now, we have had reports that actually there were other bidders also trying to look at your company. Is that true, and how big was the interest from the other ones?
That's correct. We have had a few bidders who were all interested in the company, and right to the final moment, there were still bidders competing to be the best offer.
The other bidders came from what kind of companies, and what made you go for this offer? Was it purely on price?
I won't go into details, but there were two aspects when we had to choose. First of all, naturally the price, but also where do we fit in? And we believe that the fit between DuPont and Danisco is a very good fit.
Mr. Tandrup, why is this the best thing for your shareholders?
We have had a very good period in Danisco over the last couple of years, and Friday we closed with the highest stock price we have ever had, all-time high. And then when you have a company offering you a 25% premium for that, we think that reflects the great potential we have in our company.
Now, last year there was a voting cap placed on the amount of votes that shareholders can make. Was this made in mind with the bid?
Not at all. We decided that in the new board already in the beginning of 2009, long before we had any contacts to other companies regarding this deal.
Mr. Tandrup, how's business doing? We have still a rocky road to 2011. Do you think that your company will be able to weather the storm?
I think that we have a great 2011 in front of us. Danisco is doing extremely well for the time being. We have had good growth in our businesses over the last year or so, and we don't foresee any change in that. We still believe that we will have a 6 to 7% organic growth in the year to come.
And this will mainly come from where and really what regions?
I would say that it comes from all regions. Actually, we have no regions which are disappointing for us right now. We are growing business in all our regions and in all our product groups.
What's your biggest concern, though, for this year?
The biggest concern is that we'll have a currency crisis within the EU, but that's out of our hands. I would say business-wise, we look very positive on our business for the coming year.
But if we do have a currency crisis, will that impact sales in your group? Is this something that, for example, you've been talking with the group acquiring you?
No, not at all.
All right. So thank you so much, Mr. Tandrup there.